My name is Jenny. When I was a little girl, I lived on a small island. My family was rich and very important. Many people knew our name and often spoke about us. My family was my mother, my father, and my older sister. We lived together on the island in a big house. My sister was 6 years older than me, so we did not play much together in those days. I was only 12 years old when my sister married. I still remember her wedding day very well. Many people came to our house. They laughed, sang, and celebrated together. Everyone was happy, except me. I felt sad. In fact, I felt very sad that day. My sister left with her new husband and moved far away to London. She was always very kind to me and often kinder than my own mother. My sister was the most important person in my life. My mother and father did not love me much. They wanted sons. They hardly cared about me. 1 year after my sister's wedding, a letter arrived from her husband. In the letter, he wrote that my sister was ill. She wanted to come home again and stay with her family. I was very sad when I heard about her illness. I worried a lot about her. At the same time, I felt glad that she wished to return home. I hoped that she would recover with us. My father said that she would leave London on Sunday. On Tuesday evening, they were supposed to arrive at our home. All day, I waited for them. For me, this day felt very long. Hour after hour passed, but they did not come. Again and again, I walked to the window and listened outside. Each time I hoped to hear a sound at last. The sky grew slowly dark, and night arrived. Soon it was midnight, yet I could not sleep. I lay awake in my bed and thought about my sister. Again and again, I listened into the silent night. Suddenly, about 1 o'clock, I heard a sound far away. It was quiet, but I was sure I heard something. I jumped from my bed at once and ran quickly to the sitting room. "They are here! They are here!" I shouted excitedly to my father. He also got up at once. Together we opened the front door quickly to see outside better. Outside it was dark and very still. We stood in the doorway and waited. For some minutes we heard only the wind in the night. Then we heard the sound again. It sounded like a person crying far out in the darkness. The sound was sad and spooky. But we could see no one. Before us lay only the dark night. There were no lights and no people on the path. We walked slowly in front of the house and looked around everywhere. We wanted to greet my sister and help with her bags. Yet no one came. No one stepped out of the darkness. Everything stayed silent. I looked at my father, and he looked at me. We both did not understand what had happened. "I am sure I heard a sound," he said softly. "Yes," I answered. "I heard it too, Father. But where are they?" We stayed outside a little longer and waited. Maybe we both still hoped they would appear. But the night remained quiet and cold. At last we went back into the house without another word. In that moment, we both felt a strange fear in our hearts. The next day, a man came to our house. He brought a very sad message. With a serious voice, he told us my sister was dead. On Sunday, she suddenly became very ill. On Monday, she felt even worse and had great pain. In the night to Tuesday, about 1 o'clock, she finally died. At that exact time, my father and I stood outside waiting for her arrival. When I heard this, deep pain filled my heart. I could hardly believe it, and tears ran at once down my face. I have never forgotten that night. For a long time I remembered us outside while my sister died that same hour. During the next 2 years I was very sad. My life felt empty and quiet. I had almost no joy in anything. I wanted to do nothing and seldom spoke with other people. Often I sat alone for a long time and thought about my sister and our happy days. My sister's husband soon married another young woman in London. When I heard this, I became very angry. To me, it felt as if he forgot my sister far too quickly. I could not understand how he could start a new life so soon. That made me sad and also very disappointed. Now I was the only child in our rich and important family. So very early, many men began to visit our house. Even before I was 14, they came to meet me. Some spoke kindly with me and told me about their lives. They gave me compliments and wanted to spend time with me. I knew that many of them wished to marry me, but I did not truly like any of them. In my heart, I still felt far too young for marriage, and I often thought of my sister. When I was 16, my mother took me to London. For me, this trip was something completely new. Before that, I had seen little of the big world. Our home was quiet and small, but London was very different. The city was much bigger and much louder. People stood everywhere in the streets. There were many shops, carts, and markets. Traders called out their offers loudly, and everywhere you heard voices and music. For me, everything was new and exciting. My mother said to me, "London is a big city. Here we will meet richer and more interesting men than at home. Here we can easily find a good husband for you." She spoke about this topic often and hoped I would marry soon. For her, that was very important. At first, I felt a little strange in the big city. Everything was so new for me. But after some time, I began to get used to it. Slowly, I became happier there. I met many friendly people. Some young women quickly became my friends. They showed me the most beautiful places of the city and told me many stories. Sometimes we walked through the streets together and looked at the shops. On other days, we visited small fairs or met for tea. Almost every evening we went dancing. In the great halls, music played and many young people were there. The rooms were bright and full of laughter. Many young men came to speak with me. They asked me for a dance and asked me many questions. Some told of their travels, others of their work or their families. I enjoyed listening to them. Slowly I began to laugh again and enjoy life. My heart felt lighter than before. The sadness was still there, but it was not as strong as before. I no longer thought of my dead sister every day. Sometimes I remembered her, yet the memory did not hurt so much. For the first time in a long while, I felt some joy again. I began to believe that perhaps a good future was also possible for me. But my mother was still not satisfied. She had only one big wish. She wanted to find a husband for me quickly. Almost every day she spoke about this topic. She often said that a young woman from a good family should not wait too long. In her eyes, a good marriage was the most important thing in life. One evening, just before I wanted to sleep, she came into my room. She sat quietly on a chair and looked at me for a long time. At once, I felt she wanted to speak about something important. Then she said, "Do you know Mr. Parker?" "Oh, yes," I answered at once. "That is the ugly old man from Bristol." My mother looked at me strictly. "He is not ugly and not old, Jenny," she said quickly. "He comes from a very rich and important family. Also, he is a very respected man. Many people know him and speak well of him. And he wants to marry you. He says that he likes you very much. He loves you." I looked at my mother in surprise. My thoughts were all mixed up. He loves me and wants to marry me? Me? That cannot be true. But he makes a mistake, mother, I finally said. I do not love him. I cannot marry a man I do not love. To me, this idea felt very wrong. I wanted to choose myself, whom I would marry one day. My mother stayed calm and spoke softly. Think again about it, Jenny, she said. He is a good man. He has money, a fine house, and an important family. Many young women would be happy about such an offer. You are a very lucky young woman. You should be thankful. I did not know what to answer. I felt unsure and confused. My mother stood up slowly and walked to the door. Before she left the room, she looked at me once more, very serious. Then she went out and left me alone with my many thoughts. I sat quietly in my room for a long time and thought. My mother's words went through my head again and again. Mr. Parker was a nice and friendly man. He always spoke to me in a calm and polite way. I asked myself if my mother might be right. I did not love him. No, but I liked him, and often felt calm and safe near him. When he talked with me, he told many interesting things about travels, books, and other cities. I liked these talks very much. I enjoyed listening to him, and sometimes forgot my worries. At home with my mother and father, I rarely felt happy. In our house, it was often quiet and cold. We spoke little with each other. But when I spoke with him, I felt better and less alone. The whole night I lay awake and thought about everything. Again and again I pictured my future life. Next morning I saw my mother at breakfast. She waited for my answer and looked at me closely. I knew she wanted to hear my decision. After a short moment, I said only one word. Yes. My mother smiled at once, pleased. You could see she was very happy with my answer. Soon the preparations for the wedding began. Mr. Parker and I married in the next spring. Many people came to our celebration. There was music, good food, and many guests from important families. Everyone talked, laughed, and congratulated us. 2 days after the wedding, we left my family and travelled to Bristol. The journey took several days, and everything was new to me. On the way, I saw many places, wide fields and small villages. Sometimes I saw people working in the fields. 3 days later, we finally arrived. There I saw my husband's large house for the first time. It stood near a quiet river. The house was big and lovely, and surrounded by a wide garden. In the garden, many old trees and bright flowers grew. Everywhere you could hear birds singing in the branches. The sky was clear and blue, and the air smelled of spring. I stood beside my husband and looked around for a long time. In that moment, I felt very happy. Everything looked peaceful and friendly. I thought I might start a good life here. Come, my dear, my husband said with a smile. You must come inside and meet Martha. She has worked here for many years. She cooks, cleans, and knows everything in the house. We walked together through the big front door. Inside, it was warm and cozy. There I met Martha. She was a friendly old woman with smiling blue eyes. Her face was calm and kind. She greeted me warmly and was happy to meet me. After that, she showed me the whole house. Room by room, we walked through the long corridors. Everywhere stood fine furniture and large windows let in much light. Everything seemed neat and quiet. Suddenly, I felt great joy and also a little excitement. Everything was new for me. I began to believe that maybe a new and happy life waited here for me. I felt very happy to be there. The house seemed friendly and lively. From the kitchen, you could hear women singing while they prepared the food. In the sitting rooms, men made fires in the large fireplaces. Everywhere, dogs and cats ran through the house. Some animals slept quietly in the corners. Others followed us curiously along the halls. Everything felt warm and cheerful. You could see that many people worked and lived here. The house was full of sounds and movement. "Come with me, madam," Martha said kindly. "I will show you your bedroom. After that, we will bring your bags upstairs and you can wash before dinner." I nodded and followed her along the long corridor. We went up a staircase and walked on slowly. The steps sounded soft on the floor. Soon we stopped before a large brown door. "This is your room," Martha said and opened the door. I stepped forward and looked inside. Suddenly I stopped. I felt cold with fear. In front of me stood something big and black. I did not know what it was. At first I thought it was only an old coat, but the coat stood upright, as if someone were inside. Yet there was no person, only this dark, silent shape in my room. I jumped back quickly and stepped away from the door. My heart beat very fast, and I was terribly afraid. "Is everything all right, madam?" Martha asked, looking at me in surprise. "No, maybe it is nothing," I said quickly. "But I think I saw something there. When you opened the door, I thought I saw a large black coat standing in the room." At that moment, Martha's face suddenly turned quite white. She looked very frightened. "What is wrong?" I asked her. "Now you are afraid too." Martha looked briefly into the room and then back at me. "Something bad will happen," she said quietly. "If anyone in this house sees the black coat, it means misfortune for Mr. Parker's family. I saw it once when I was a child. The next morning, the old Mr. Parker died. Since then, everyone here believes in this sign. Many people in the house still speak of it today. And now you have seen it, madam. I have a very bad feeling." After that, we went downstairs for dinner. I tried to stay calm, but fear was in my heart. Again and again, I thought of the black coat in my room. Still, I told my husband nothing about it. I did not want him to worry. I also hoped it was only a mistake, and that I had perhaps imagined the whole thing. I just wanted to forget the strange event and be happy again. The next day, Mr. Parker and I went for a walk. We wanted to look at the house and the garden. I wanted to know my new home better. The sun shone, and the garden looked very beautiful. Trees and flowers stood everywhere. The air was fresh and quiet. We heard only the birds in the trees and the soft river water. I looked at my husband and said, "I like this house, and I am happy here with you. It is much better than my old home." My husband did not answer at once. He stayed silent for a long time. He walked slowly beside me and looked at the ground. It seemed he was thinking about something important. His face was serious, and his steps were slow. Then he suddenly stopped and turned to me. He took my hand and looked at me seriously. "Jenny, listen to me carefully," he said. "I must ask you something. Please stay only in the front rooms of the house. You may go to the back rooms or the small garden by the back door, but never walk further to the far back. Promise me this. Do you understand, Jenny?" His face was very pale and he looked sad. I understood his words, but not the reason. I wondered why he was suddenly so serious. In London, he had often smiled and spoken kindly with me. But here in Bristol, he was different. He smiled rarely and almost never laughed. Sometimes he even seemed afraid. Maybe the back part of the house was dangerous, I thought. Perhaps there was something there I should not see. I wanted to ask him more, but he did not continue. We walked back to the house in silence. Neither of us said a word. The happy mood from the morning had gone. I tried to forget his words and feel happy again. About a month later, I met the other woman for the first time. It was a warm and beautiful day. After lunch, I wanted to take a short walk in the garden, so I ran quickly to my room to get my hat and coat. But when I opened the door, I saw something unexpected. A woman sat quietly by the fire in my room. I stopped at once and looked at her in surprise. She was about 40 years old and wore a long black coat. Her face was very pale. When I looked closer, I noticed something strange. Her eyes were completely white. In that moment, I understood she was blind. "Madam," I said carefully, "this is my room. I think there is a mistake." The woman slowly turned her head toward me. "My room," she said calmly. "A mistake? No, I do not think it is a mistake." Her voice was cold and quiet. Then she suddenly asked, "Where is Mr. Parker?" "Down in the sitting room," I answered, confused. "But who are you, and why are you in my room?" The woman did not move. "Tell Mr. Parker I wish to speak to him," she said. Her words made me even more nervous. I stood straight and said firmly, "I must tell you that I am Mrs. Parker, and I would like you to leave my room now." Suddenly, her face changed. "Mrs. Parker," she repeated loudly, "you are not. You are not," she shouted suddenly. In the next moment, she hit me hard across the face. The blow came so fast that I staggered back a step. From pain and fear, I cried out loudly for help. My voice echoed through the house. Only a few moments later, I heard quick steps in the corridor. Soon Mr. Parker came into the room. I ran out of the room at once when he entered. My heart beat very fast. I stayed outside the door and listened. I could not understand every word, but I heard that Mr. Parker was very angry. His voice was loud and strict. The blind woman sounded sad and desperate. When my husband finally came out of the room, I looked at him at once. "Who is that woman?" I asked, "and why was she in my bedroom?" But my husband only looked at me briefly. Then he was silent and did not answer me. His face turned pale again with fear. He looked at me only briefly and whispered, "Forget her." He said nothing more. His voice sounded tired and unsure. Then he turned away, as if he wanted to end the talk. But I could not forget her. The image of the blind woman stayed in my head. From that day, everything became different between us. Each day, it grew harder to speak with my husband. Before, he had often talked kindly with me, yet now he was almost always silent. Many times he seemed sad, and also a little afraid. For long hours he sat by the fire and only stared into the flames. Sometimes he hardly moved at all. His eyes were full of worry. I wanted to know what troubled him, but he told me nothing. When I asked, he changed the subject, or simply kept quiet. So we lived several days in a silent and heavy mood. One morning after breakfast, Mr. Parker suddenly said something very strange. "I have a solution," he said. "We must go to another country. Maybe to France or Spain. There we can begin again. What do you think, Jenny?" But he did not wait for my answer. Almost as soon as he spoke, he stood up and left the room quickly. I stayed alone at the table and thought for a long time. Why must we leave Bristol? I asked myself again and again. I did not understand the reason. I also did not want to go so far from my family. My mother and father lived in London. They were now old, and my father was often ill. Even if they had not shown me much love before, I wished to stay near them. All day I thought about my husband's words. I did not know what to tell him. When he came back in the evening and we ate supper together, I kept silent. He also spoke hardly a word. The mood was cold and still. After the meal, I felt very tired. I went early to my bedroom. I hoped that one night of sleep would help me think more clearly. The next day, I wanted to think calmly about everything once more. I lay down, closed my eyes, and soon fell asleep. But my sleep was restless. Again and again, I dreamed of the black coat in my room. In my dream, it stood still in the dark, just like on the first night. I felt that someone was watching me. Suddenly, I woke up. My heart beat fast. The room was dark and very quiet. But I was not alone in the room. Someone stood at the end of my bed. First, I could see only a small light. A hand held a lamp up. Behind the light, I slowly saw the blind woman's face. She stood quite still and did not move. In her other hand, she held a knife. The metal shone faintly in the light. My heart began to beat very fast at once. I felt great fear. I wanted to jump from the bed and run to the door. But she raised the knife a little and said calmly, "If you want to live, stay still. Do not move." Her voice was cold and quiet. Then she said, "I have one question. Answer honestly. Did Mr. Parker marry you?" My voice shook with fear, but I answered, "Yes, he married me. Many people were at our wedding." The woman was silent for a moment. She just stood there and breathed slowly. Then she said softly, "That is very sad, because I do not think he told you the truth. I am his wife, not you." Her words hit me like a blow. For a moment I could say nothing. My head was full of fear and confusion. "You must leave this house tomorrow," she continued. "If you stay, you will see this knife. Then I will kill you." After that, she turned slowly and walked quietly out of the room. I did not even hear her steps. It was as if she simply vanished. That night, I could not sleep again. I lay awake for a long time and thought only of her words. Again and again, I saw her pale face before me. When morning came, I felt weak and very tired. Still, I got up at once. I looked for my husband and told him everything. "Who is that blind woman?" I asked. "She came last night into my room. She said she is your wife, and that I am not." My husband suddenly looked at me sternly. "Were you in the back rooms of the house?" he asked angrily. "I told you that you must never go there." "But I was not there," I answered quickly. "I was in my bed all night. She came to me. Please tell me what is happening here." His face turned pale again. For a long time he said nothing. You could see he was very nervous. Then he said slowly, "No, she is not my wife. You are my wife. Do not listen to her words. She does not know what she says." After that, he left the room without looking at me again. I stayed behind, confused. His answer made everything even less clear. I quickly ran to Martha. I suddenly felt very uneasy in this house. My husband had become a stranger to me. I no longer understood him, and I wanted at last to know who that blind woman was. When I found Martha, she saw my fear at once. "Do not cry, madam," she said quietly. "Please sit down and listen to me. What I must tell you is not pleasant." I sat down and waited. "The blind woman," Martha said softly, "the one in the black coat, died long ago. What you saw was her ghost. Long ago she was married to your husband. She was Mr. Parker's first wife. No one knows exactly how she died. Her bedroom was at the back of the house. On the night she died, Someone saw your husband with a knife in his hand. Did he kill her? No one knows. When they found her, the knife lay on the floor beside her, and her eyes were gone. Someone had cut them out after her death. Perhaps he did not want her to see his other wives. His next wife, you. When I heard that, great fear came over me. My body turned cold, and my hands trembled. I did not want to stay one more minute in this house. I did not even wait to speak with my husband again. On the same day, I left the house. I quickly said goodbye to Martha, took my bags, and told my driver to return me to London. Now I live again with my mother and father. The house there is quiet. I sleep well every night. My parents are kinder to me today than before. Sometimes my dead sister visits me in my dreams, but I have no fear of her. She tells me that the blind woman is still in the house in Bristol looking for me. She wants to kill me because she is jealous of me, but she cannot find me there. She must wait for Mr. Parker's next wife.